This video here is a long time in the making, guys. I've heard a bunch of shit that's been taken out of context and definitely needs to be cleared up, especially ahead of the election on Tuesday, and I think now is the perfect time to dispel. Roughly, I found about seven quotes that are constantly taken out of context by President Trump, and these might be hookups that you have, or hang-ups, or reasons why you don't quite like Trump. Now, I've spent a long time, and you know what, I'll point it out when we get to it, but there was one that was probably my turning point. Actually, not even probably. It was definitely my turning point, where it was like, oh, okay, Trump's just not even somebody you should consider running for the Republican ticket, and he's just a complete joke. Oh, look what he said. And then I took the time to go research it, and it's like, oh, no, he makes quite a good point. And then every consequential statement that gets taken out of context as a ball just keeps on rolling down and downhill, you realize that so much of what he says is taken out of context and totally smeared. Now, I know I've said context about 15 fucking times prior to starting this video, but it is necessary. So what I'm going to do, I've got a bunch of different quotes lined up here, and then for the stories that require them, I will play them, and then we will fact check them and give them proper, you guessed it, word of the day, context. First and foremost, this is the one that is always repeated, and it's always wrong. Absolutely wrong. Trump says both sides to blame amid Charlottesville backlash. Now, I know you guys are probably quite familiar with this, and yeah, if you don't know the proper context to it, it's very damning. It would seem like, oh, okay, yeah, Trump thinks that white supremacists and neo-Nazis are good people, as well as not being good people. Well, okay, here's the CNN line, and we're going to be using a lot of CNN here because they love to push this narrative that Donald Trump's a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic. I can't think of the rest of them, LGBTQIAA+++, something like that, right? President Donald Trump, in a staggering impromptu news conference in New York on Tuesday, blamed the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend on both sides of the conflict, equating the white supremacists on one side with the alt-left on the other side, after his top White House aides spent days trying to clean up after Trump's initial vague response to the violence. Now, what you always hear, and you never hear it properly put into context, I will clear it up for you right here.
I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
Now, I condensed a couple of parts from that different speech there. It was the exact same speech. I will guarantee you on my life that was the exact same speech. Now, I took out a couple of few seconds there where he was just rambling on about the importance that the Unite the Right was there for, to protest the statues being taken down, but whatever. So as you can see, he said, yeah, okay, the alt-left is real bad, and there are fine people on both sides. And then about 20 seconds later, he says, I'm not talking about the white supremacists and neo-Nazis. They should be condemned fully. See? Exactly. And that also hits on another point here. Trump's failure to condemn white supremacy at debate, part of well-established pattern. Didn't we just play something from 2017 where he condemned white supremacy? But that was the narrative coming out of the first debate, right? Trump never denounces white supremacy. He just merely lets it continue on. He never says anything about it. Hell, he'll even tell the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. He won't even denounce that, white supremacist group that's led by a half-black, half-Cuban man. It won't denounce, the KKK, even though he has several thousand times. Or how about the fact that he has denounced white supremacy, including that time that I'm telling you there, In 2016, Trump again disavows alt-right and white supremacists. President-elect Donald Trump is again dissing himself from the alt-right movement as white supremacist members claim his election is a boon for their agenda. I disavow and condemn them, Trump said Thursday. That would be Tuesday. I know, it's been such a long time that I get my dates confused because this was November 22nd, wait for it, 2016, when he was president-elect, okay? We're just about at the end of his first term, okay? He's been condemning them forever, for goddamn ever. And you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. Fox News has put out a nearly 5-minute long video, and I will not waste your time playing all of it, or hell, even any of it, because they've done my job for me when it comes to this one. Trump denounces white supremacy 38 times in new campaign video. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris continue to espouse that horseshit ad nauseum, folks. So I hope that one's cleared up for you. So if you had any hang-ups in regards to President Trump not denouncing white supremacy and being a secret neo-Nazi himself, we can go ahead and throw that one right out the frickin' window. Now, this was another hot take. Not that long after he took office, he put in the Muslim travel ban when he said that, there were a whole bunch of countries that were not allowed to come into the country because they were what? Everything that you heard from the mainstream media is because, he's not letting any Muslims in the country. Well, okay, here were the list of nations, and this is the 2018 travel ban. Now, the first one was labeled unconstitutional, and it was overthrown by one of their appeals courts, but this one was actually allowed to stay. So the latest iteration of the ban includes restriction on 5 majority Muslim nations. 5. Iran, not a great place. Libya, civil war, anyone? Somalia, come on. Syria, exactly, and Yemen. I have an uncle who used to work in Yemen, by the way, and in order to get a day off, you know what guys would do there? They would chop off fingers. That'd be the only way that you could get a day off, because it is, for all intents and purposes, a slave nation. North Korea and Venezuela, 2 majority Muslim countries, as you know, not even a little bit, are also on the list. 3 other majority Muslim nations, including Chad, Iraq, and the Sudan, have been removed since the policy was implemented through executive order in 2017. Now, the only ones that you could really argue, probably Iraq, probably the Sudan, but Chad? Interesting. Now, those were on the initial travel ban, but they weren't on this one that was upheld. Now, here is the list of majority Muslim nations. Now, if Trump was doing a full Muslim ban, wouldn't he ban Indonesia? India? Pakistan, that nuclear powerhouse, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Egypt? You have to get down to number 7 at Iran before he actually has a large population country. A country that has 99.5% Muslims, okay? 77.65 million Muslims. And then you got Turkey, Algeria, and Iraq. Now, was Algeria on there? No. Was Turkey on there? No. Should Turkey have been? Probably, because Erdogan's a fucking maniac. But at the same time, now there's no clip for this one, but I want you guys to know, Trump wasn't the first one to do this. I know, shock and horror, right? Barack Obama's administration helped make Trump's Muslim ban possible. Well then, on January 28th, President Trump signed an executive order denying entry for 90 days to the United States for individuals from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, Libya, and Somalia. A spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security told Reuters that the ban would prevent green card holders from banned countries from returning to the United States if they travel abroad. Not exactly a full Muslim ban. And where does it say anything about religious qualifiers on there? I don't seem to find them, but in response to the ban, protests erupted at major airports across the country in mostly Democratic cities. Of course, as opposed to being an anomaly introduced by Trump's presidency, the ban was set into motion by Barack Obama's administration. In December 2015, Obama signed into law the Visa Waiver Improvement Program and Terrorist Travel Prevention Act, which designated Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, Libya, and Somalia as areas of concern. An attorney for the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, Yolanda Rodon, criticized the act for blatant profiling on its face, even though they are the most significant and they present the greatest threat of Islamic terrorism throughout the entire world by percentage, by the way, with the exception of the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, which the United States has done business with for a very, very long time. Don't you forget that. Only nations of particular countries, regardless of whether they have traveled to a terrorist support country or not. Oh, wow, this lady really let the mask slip there. Terrorist support country have to meet additional requirements that they would not otherwise have to go through if they were not Arab. Well, let's just go back and take a look at the ban from 2018. How many Arabs do you think are in North Korea? How many Arabs do you think are Venezuelan? Yeah, not exactly. Now, if you guys were having hang-ups about the Muslim ban, I hope those dispel it for you, because it wasn't an ideological ban. It was merely a restriction on movement from countries that don't exactly have the best reputation, or, you know what, are in a constant state of war. North Korea, Venezuela, currently still involved in a civil war at this time. I have no idea when that one's ever going to resolve itself, but Trump's travel bans have nothing to do with being Muslim. You can thank Obama for that one. Now, here's the big one for probably a lot of you people out there. And by you people, I mean Mexicans. No, I don't. I mean for you people who think that decorum in the president's office is non-negotiable. You think that it is a prerequisite for the job. And you know what, the way Trump speaks, it doesn't exactly lend you to his credibility to take that position. And what I mean by that is when he said that all Mexicans are rapists and murderers, right? When he was saying that about everybody who comes over the border legally. And, well, here's the exact quote. "They're not our friend, believe me," he said before disparaging Mexican immigrants. "They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people." Well then, is that what he said? Or is that just a little piece taken out of context? Well, yeah, that's not exactly the full story, and I will tell you why.
Our country is in serious trouble. When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East. But we don't know, because we have no protection, and we have no competence. We don't know what's happening, and it's got to stop.
Now that you have context, what do you think about it? Do you think that there was any sort of malice but being directed at the entire Mexican population? No. You know what that entire speech was actually in reference to? MS-13 gangs. Gangs that like to specialize in Colombian neckties, which means that they cut a hole, they do a tracheotomy on the fly, and remove one's tongue from their throat. How about that? Or the fact that they just kill indiscriminately. Mexico is a very corrupt place, and it was brought to you in part by NAFTA. NAFTA was a very terrible thing, something that Trump likes to rail about, and most people have kind of come to the conclusion that NAFTA was a big train wreck, and the TPP, which he also got out of at the same time, yeah, just another disastrous policy. But you also seen in that clip there that he was pointing to, you know, visible Mexicans or visible Latinos out in the crowd saying, not you and not you. Now, if you're talking about hardened gang members, are they bringing drugs? Are they bringing crime? Yes, we've all heard the tales and we all know the stories. Are they rapists? Yes. Are they murderers? Yes. Do you want them in your country? Fuck no. And it wasn't specifically to Mexico. It was to, well, a lot of those corrupt South American countries, like Venezuela, which he banned travel from. You know, that majority Muslim nation, right? Duh. Hopefully that cleared that up for you guys. Now, another thing, because I went duh there at the end, and that's kind of a nice little transition into another thing that happened during the campaign that people just don't like to let go and was really a big sticking point. Trump's worst offense, mocking a disabled reporter? When Trump asked a recent Bloomberg poll, when asked in a recent Bloomberg poll what bothered them most about Donald Trump, a slew of other controversies, like voters picked one action above all others when the candidate mocked a reporter with a disability last November. Now, did he? Did he really? Or is that just a tick? Now, editing a ton of these videos, I noticed that I have a couple of little verbal crutches, and, you know, in making jokes, I like to go to the same well the exact same time because I find some shit funny. And that's not unlike what President Trump does. Now, we have a montage of specific instances where President Trump decided that, he'd reach into an old bag of tricks, and it just so happened he didn't know that this reporter was disabled. Okay? He didn't know that this could be construed as being offensive based on the fact that the reporter has special needs. It's something that he's done for a very, very long time, and it's something that he did without anybody protesting on the campaign trail. Now, I will let the video speak for itself.
And we'll get some of these regulators out of the banks so you can borrow and you can help. Because, you know, the banks now, they can't do anything. They're run by the regulators. In all fairness to the banks, they're run by the regulators. When you see the president of the bank, I mentioned the word regulator. These guys come in, they run the banks. And I watched a general recently on television, and they said to him, "What do you think about ISIS?" "Oh, ISIS is very tough." And I'm saying, first of all, why is a general on television? I don't want my generals on television. I heard Ted's a good debater. I said, he is a good debater, but he can't talk, okay? Bad talker. He's a good debater, bad talker. So he's over here. They asked him about waterboarding. They said, "Senator Cruz, what do you think of waterboarding?" I don't want to talk about it. You know, he didn't want to talk about waterboarding because too controversial. And I'm saying to myself, they're chopping off heads. He doesn't want to talk about waterboarding. A couple of good paragraphs. And talking about northern New Jersey draws the prober's eye. Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. I thought, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction. 14 years ago, they did no retraction.
Now, you seen at the end, that was the clip. Now, it went on a little bit longer because, well, he was making a joke. The crowd was into it. And you also noticed that there were, 3 or 4 instances where he did the exact same motion. Now, if you go back and watch old interviews that he gave on visual mediums, like Howard Stern, for example, he would make that exact same, duh, I don't know. Fuck, I've done it in a few videos myself, and hell, I'm the only one in here, and I'd like to think I'm not retarded. So, how can you criticize somebody who's been doing this for a very, very long time, just making fun of somebody who is patently dumb, not making fun of somebody for the fact that they are a special needs person? I don't think he would have done that. He has proven himself to be a very thoughtful and a very caring individual, somebody who is not apt to call somebody a loser. Now, I think that's a good segue into our next point. Remember this stupid Atlantic article? Trump, Americans who died in war are losers and suckers. Now, just on the face of it, it just seems absolutely absurd. There is no president, well, at least in my lifetime that I can think of, who has been more fervently behind repairing the Veterans Association and being behind the men on the ground. Now, most of the politicians that have been through the White House and have been through Congress have been very much behind the generals, and the generals normally support them. Now, because President Trump is so fervently behind all the generals and all the people on the ground, they are supporting his re-election campaign for 2020. You can take a look at the different endorsements that he has. It is massive. Being the law and order candidate kind of comes with the support of the law and order institutions. So this just immediately seemed like a complete and utter red herring. It seemed like something that had absolutely no chance of being true. But you know what? When I made my first video on this, I said that there is some underlying things that they have used from his past that he was able to exploit, that being stupid Jeffrey Goldberg, and make it seem like it was a possibility. Make it seem like it was something that Trump could say. Because the awful reality that Donald Trump's repeated attacks on John McCain prove. Now, if you are a Republican, a new wave, a modern Republican, you probably don't have any love lost for John McCain. John McCain is 100% a rhino. He is the original hardliner in the primaries. I am a border hawk. I am for your Second Amendment. I am for everything that the Constitution stands for. Cue the eagles overhead and the flag unfurling behind him. And then as soon as he came to, actually having to do his job in the Senate or running in 2008 in an unwinnable campaign against Barack Obama, he just became old. Centrist, even center-left John. John was a fucking carpetbagger. John, like you'll see in this clip here, was somebody who had a very, very high level of distaste for the Republican base. And I will just let President Trump dispel this one right off the bat, because what is the thing? He called John McCain a loser, right? Well, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
John McCain goes, oh boy, Trump makes my life difficult. He had 15,000 crazies show up. Crazies. He called them all crazy. I said, they weren't crazy. They were great Americans. These people, if you would have seen these people, I know what crazy is. I know all about crazies. These weren't crazy. So he insulted me, and he insulted everybody in that room. And I said, somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You can have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero, but right now he said some very bad things about a lot of people.
Now that you guys have proper context, if you haven't heard that one in a while, or maybe you haven't even heard it at all, listen, he was taking offense to the fact that John McCain was calling his base, and the Republican base at large, crazy for supporting President Trump. Now, that came back and bit him in his old withered leathery ass, but he couldn't really find him because he was too busy dodging the Senate with an incurable brain tumor. The fucking asshole. Just give up your spot at that point, but that's a discussion for another video. Anyways, let's stay on track, okay? Trump was mad. He was getting a little bit of a reaction when he was saying that John McCain called them crazy. He was getting a little bit more of a reaction as things go on. And then, as an entertainer, as somebody who can read a crowd, he was playing it up to it. And he knew that one would sting John McCain real hard because he was alive at this time. And some of the tapes that have come out afterwards, the fact that John McCain was a collaborator with the Vietnam military, and he was also involved with a little bit of a sting he got cut up with. I think it was a radio stunt or something where somebody was posing as the prime minister, not Putin, but the prime minister of Russia. And he kind of played along a little bit too much for people's liking. But one day when we break down the character of John McCain, I will play those clips for you. And then just to wrap up this stupid Atlantic article, immediately discredited because not even a day later, John Bolton was on Fox News saying, claims that Trump's called U.S. war dead losers are false, as ambassador to France insisted president canceled visit in 2018 due to bad weather, not because he feared his hair getting wet. And there are many, many, many other instances of that being the case. So, yeah, that was just a smear piece. Everybody smelt it out as a smear piece, and it wasn't even a well-read or well-researched smear piece. Now we're into the home stretch. How about calling for people to inject bleach into their arm and that would fix COVID, or the fact that COVID is merely just a hoax. First, we'll dispel the latter. He never said that COVID was a hoax. He was referring to a very specific statement made. Now, you know Snopes really, really, really didn't want to give him this one because, well, it's Snopes after all. And even though it is absolutely untrue, they'll still say it's a mixture because it is Snopes after all. And I wanted to use this source because, hell, I'm using fucking Politico and CNN, so you know what, I might as well run the gamut of leftist propaganda, and where's a better place to end on than Snopes? During a February 28, 2020, God, we've been dealing with this shit for so long, campaign rally in South Carolina, President Donald Trump likened the Democrats' criticism of his administration's response to the new coronavirus outbreak to their efforts to impeaching him, saying this is their new hoax. Full stop. That's it. That's the quote. During the speech, he also seemed to downplay the severity of the outbreak, comparing it to the common flu, which is exactly what a leader should do. That's another one. Oh, just a little bonus thing here. All those Bob Woodward tapes that came out and said that, oh, Trump played it down. There's not really anything to fact check there. It's just they're spinning it into saying that, oh, he knew it was going to be as deadly as the Black Plague, and why didn't he tell anybody about it? Well, okay. Here, let me frame this for you. If your president, if your leader, if your boss comes out and says one day, everybody's going to die from something that we cannot stop. Do you think that that is the right way for a boss or a leader to act? No. You want to tell them that, hey, you know what? Shit's going to be a little bit rough, but we're going to get through this if we do the right thing. And that's more or less what Trump had to say. He didn't use such colorful language. I'm sure he did behind the scenes, but that's between him and whoever he was talking about. So, what did stupid Snopes have to say here? Despite creating some confusion with his remarks, Trump did not call the coronavirus itself a hoax. Why do they have mixture there? Why? Why? He didn't say it was a hoax. They said it wasn't a hoax. There you go. Now, back to the final point at hand here. And we got the other biased fact-checking site, so you know that they didn't want this one to be true either. In context, what Donald Trump said about disinfectant, sun, and the coronavirus. Now, at this time, in April, there were some very kind of controversial treatments that were being floated around out there. The scientists at the time understood that UV light had something to do with the killing and disinfecting of the virus, that if you applied high direct UV light to the virus, it wouldn't be able to stand. Now, that's mostly consistent with many other viruses out there, so that was a fair place to start. And another thing is, disinfectants, aerosolizing disinfectants like hydrogen peroxide, things that you would use to normally, clean out an infection. If you got a scrape on your arm, your mom says, oh, just put on some polysporin, or just just get some peroxide. It might hurt for a second, but then just wash it out and put a Band-Aid on it. Now, because Trump is more of an abstract thinker than he is, a seasoned politician, like say Barack Obama probably would have had a teleprompter strapped to his head, and he would have been able to deliver something eloquent like, look, okay, we're going to get through this one, okay? There will not be a need to worry. No, instead Trump's like, oh, okay, we could probably just put lights. I know the doctors are testing this right now. They're putting lights, and the lights are being very good, and they're doing the great stuff like everybody agrees they might. And yeah, we're looking at putting them inside the body as well. And you guys are trying that, right? Yes, they had a doctor just off stage. And he's like, yeah, we're also going to take a look at what's happening with disinfectants, because, disinfectants get rid of things. And we're going to, maybe you should, try and look at that. So here's what PolitiFact has to say. President Trump is walking back what he said during an April 23rd coronavirus press briefing about disinfectants to treat COVID-19 patients. I was asking a very sarcastic question to the reporters in the room about disinfectants on the inside, he said during a briefing in the Oval Office on April 24th. But it does kill it, and it would kill it on the hands, and it would make things much better. That was done in a form of a sarcastic question to the reporters. Now, here's the full context. Here is the entire exchange that he had between the reporters, the doctor, and himself. A question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find it to be very interesting. So, supposedly we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just a very powerful light, the best light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked. You're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside your body, which you can do either through the skin or some other way, to Brian, who was the doctor off stage. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting, right? And then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in 1 minute. And there is a way we can do something like that. But injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check on that. So you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful. Where does he say people should run around and start injecting it? He says that the doctors should, test the theory out there. He's not saying run around with nails dipped in fucking spray 9. So I hope that cleaned some stuff up for you guys. Oh, funny I'd end this on cleaning after we're doing a bleach injection story, but hopefully that puts your mind to rest on a couple of things that have been endlessly propagated throughout the mainstream media these past 4 years. Hopefully this lets you turn the corner. Because when the Mexican rapist things first came out, when he was talking about the MS-13, I was working at a warehouse at the time, and people were saying some shit like that, and it's like, that really didn't exactly sit with me at the time. I was very, very, very convinced during the time of the Republican primaries in 2015 that it was just going to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. We'd have another Bush versus Clinton, and then the cycle would just fucking continue and spiral out into the universe. But then Trump came along. I started saying some very inflammatory things, which people were picking up and running with because, news is a ratings-driven business, except for now it's a activist-driven business. But Trump was the only one who was out there saying the things that everybody was, kind of thinking. And at the time, Barack Obama and Joe Biden weren't saying things like ISIS, which Trump did, in fact, defeat when he bombed the shit out of that fucker in a very, very precise and coordinated attack, by the way. It wasn't some willy-nilly Barack Obama drone strike. But then he just called all Mexicans rapists. That's just totally going to torpedo his campaign. And then I thought that nobody's going to be that stupid to actually say that. And then I went and I looked up that original speech. It's probably part of that clip. And I realized it's like, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. We've all heard those drug muling stories. We've all heard, the instances of, sex trafficking happening across the border, and it's something that needs to stop. Nobody's been talking about it. We all, like I said, know the stories, and Trump's the first one to come along and actually want to do something about it. And then he started to make the more and more inflammatory stories like, okay, John McCain's just a loser. And I just, kind of chuckled at that. And then like I did here, I just went and looked at the story and it's like, you didn't really call him a loser. He was just, John McCain was making some very inflammatory statements, which, it is par for that old neocon anyways. But yeah, it's kind of funny, He was saying it in jest, and clearly you guys seen in the video there that he was playing up to the audience. He wasn't trying to put John McCain down, and even though he totally 100% deserved it. And then by about that time, yeah, I was definitely on the Trump train, 100%. And you know what? I don't think that Trump is the be-all, end-all. I think that he is the right politician for the right time, and you know what? My real name is Don. Growing up, the only other Don that I knew or could think of was, Donald Trump. And I was kind of a little bit embarrassed because everybody else I was growing up with, like a Patrick or a Blake or a Brock, they all had, other famous people that had their same first name. And the only one I could think of right now was like, Donald Trump. And it's like Donald Sutherland was an old fuck at that point. So kind of a little bit irrelevant, but it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? He is successful, but I didn't really much care for him until I started to hear the man talk. And that's why I wanted to do this video, because once you hear the man talk, you understand what he's saying, and that kind of puts all of those mainstream narratives, those spins, kind of puts them to rest, right? At least hope that did that for you, because you should have a very informed opinion on when you walk into the ballot box on Tuesday. If you haven't already voted early, then hopefully this helps you out with understanding who you are voting for or who you might not be voting for. Hell, I'm not here to convert anybody on Team Trump. By all means, make up your own decisions out there, but at least know that people have been lying to you, and you should be able to make up your own mind based on the facts presented. Anyways, guys, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I understand that this is a long-ass video, and I appreciate if you guys are sticking around through the end of this and listening to the little preamble and the little wrap-up show. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.